I ripped open my power bill just recently, got it here, and it's twice what it should be. It's $384 for my power bill. It should be about $150. Megan Woods, I'm shocked how much my power bill is here. You can see it right here. If you could take a camera to this power bill here, there you go. That's it right there. Trust Power. I don't know why it's so much. What do you think about power prices today?
Well, I think power prices are too high, and I think one of the areas, I assume that's a postpaid, that you're on account, that it's even worse if you're doing prepay with some companies. Some of the prepay companies have moved back and have done really well, but Contact, for example, you're paying 38% more if you're a prepay customer, and many of the prepay customers are many of our poorest and most vulnerable families. Cold, uninsulated houses, need a warrant of fitness and need to get some fairness in that prepaid power pricing.
Why are power prices so expensive?
Well, they haven't risen much in recent times, so I'm interested with your power bill. Did you say it was twice last year?
I don't know why.
Yeah. Well, first thing I would suggest is try What's My Number, because you should certainly be able to do better than that. The increase, according to MB, in the last year is the lowest on record. So there is something fundamentally wrong with your bill when it's so out of kilter with the rest of the country.
But prices since 2002 have increased 3 times rate of inflation to now. They've really increased, Fletcher. What can be done?
Well, I'm going to assume that you haven't been watching 50 Shades of Grey on all your TVs throughout the house.
I'm innocent. What would New Zealand First do? How can you bring back the power prices?
Well, going from there, we've had a period of we've gone through a huge restructure, which we never agreed with from the start, which have privatised an industry that shouldn't have been privatised, and our prices have been going up. And the excuses that perfectly competitive markets will look after consumers have been proven to be absolute rubbish.
All right. Okay. I'll come back to the panel. I'll come back to you, Damien.
Yeah, I'm with Sue Chetwynd from Consumer New Zealand. Hello.
Hello.
Great to have you on the show. Look, I've got Wallace's power bill here. I love it, actually. He's crossed out the Trust Power GST number in case we were trying to get hold of the Trust Power GST number. Very safe.
Very safe.
Do you think Wallace has got a grow operation going on under his house? Is that is the only logical conclusion?
Well, I think it is the only logical conclusion, or he's put in a swimming pool and he hasn't told anybody.
Yeah, I know, because Wallace is always telling me that I spend too much time out in the town, and I know. Do you know what? That is more. I've got a family of 4 at home, and I don't spend that much on power, which suggests that Wallace, you should do what I do and spend more time out in the town, less time moping around at house with your heater on. At least at the backbencher pub, they pay for the power. Isn't that right?
Well, no, perhaps he could go onto Power Switch, actually, the free switching site, and actually have a look at the cheapest company for him to be on. I'm sure he could make some considerable savings.
Does power cost too much, though?
Well, look, it probably does. We've had competition in the market now since the early 2000s, in fact, probably even later than that. And still 95% of the power is run by the big 5 retailers, and any of the new ones that have come in are still only just nibbling at the heels of the big ones. So there hasn't been that much, good, I guess, in it for consumers.
The top 5 power companies, obviously you can't have price fixing, you can't have cartels, you can't have that sort of thing, but are all their fundamental price structures basically the same?
Look, they are very similar. They do say they are being competitive, and there are cheaper prices out there if they think that you're a good customer. They'll come knocking on your door or ringing you up. But nevertheless, the sort of headline prices are still high.
Every couple of days, it seems, someone comes knocking at my door telling me to switch power companies. If you do that and you do it enough time, is that what we should be doing as consumers?
Yeah, look, if you do switch and you use, the free switching site, then you can make some savings. And, for some families it could be, $300, up to $1,000 a year. So it's really significant savings. It's worth having a look. It's
10 more plants for Wallace. Wonderful. Thank you very much for coming on, Sue Chetwynd. Appreciate your time.
10 more plants for Wallace. Hell. Look, I want to talk about, you've got an economist background, Fletcher, so I want to ask you, 27 retailers in the market, that should guarantee the best prices. That's what Sue Chetwynd's kind of initiating. There is competition now like we've never had before.
Yeah, but as was alluded to, that those retailers are kind of nipping at the edges. They're playing with small margins. They're not really playing. There's not much for them to take and pass on to the end consumer. So it actually goes back to the generators, and there's big questions that need to be asked there.
So how would removing the competition improve that?
Have I said removing the competition?
Well, you said you don't like the current structure. I'm arguing that the competition is one of the best things, and I agree with Sue Chetwynd. I think the advice she's given is right. People should be shopping around. Go to What's My Number. On average, people who are doing that are saving about $175 each consumer per year. Why wouldn't you shop around and keep going for the best price you can get?
All right, then, Megan.
So, one of the things that of the top 5, 3 of them are now privately owned that used to be state owned. So they no longer have a social dividend. You have special dividends being paid out of 367 million in one case. So there's a huge amount being returned to shareholder in the form of profit. It's not about providing power. But let's bear in mind, if you're on prepay because someone won't supply you a post-pay because you earn too little, you don't have choice. You can't shop around like Tim's talking about. You're stuck with paying 38% more for your electricity,
What do you see?
and that is wrong.
What do you see amongst the ordinary people in Wigram?
I see that a lot of people that have no choice but to be on prepay power. That's the only
So what would Labor
electricity
do?
supply.
What would Labor do differently? You talked about last election of creating a new state agency to buy electricity wholesale and bring down prices. Would you still do that?
Well, as you know, we are currently looking at all our policies. But what I will say, what we have done in opposition, is that we've put a lot of pressure on a lot of the prepaid power companies that we have many like Globug that have moved and are now charging the same rate for their prepaid power as their
Fletcher,
postpaid.
now's New Zealand's first chance. You're an economist. Would New Zealand First do anything differently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're talking about the big 5 who have a profit motive, and you then have to ask the question, is that actually in the best interest of all New Zealanders? And I think everyone in this room would agree that since 2002, prices have more than doubled. Yeah. So we've seen a market structure that doesn't work for everyday New Zealanders.
I want to, speaking of people in the room, I want to go to Damien because that's my power bill. Do other people in the room here feel that power is just a bit too high?
Who got a higher power bill than Wallace this month? $400 for a 2-person flat. Anyone? What's your power bill each month, roughly, sir?
Oh, about $180.
Can you give Wallace some advice on what do you do versus what Wallace does with his Sparple and his grow house and all that?
I think you must have that. We have a fire every night.
You have a fire every night?
Yeah, and that makes a big difference.
That makes a big difference. Okay. Are you together? No? Okay, so who knows? What's your power bill each month?
It's about the same as his, which is too much for
What a coincidence.
too much for a shoebox, I feel. I think someone's hooked into my power.
So I mean, Wallace, you got kind of a little bit of a shoe. I mean, it's not tiny, but, you know, it's not huge. What are you doing, mate?
Well, I just don't know. This is why I brought it along, because I can't understand why my power is so high. I just don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, well, we'll come back up here. I mean, some of the cannabis guys might have grow. But Fred, Fred from Normal here? What's your power bill each month?
About $150.
$150.
Yep, that's it. Yep.
How many plants are you running with that?
No, let the sun do that.
All right, and finally, let's go up. This chap up here looks like a sensible man. Hello.
Hello.
Power bill each month?
Between 150 and 180 at the moment, just in winter. In summer, probably about 90.
And that's in Wellington, Wallace. That's in Wellington.
There's, saying something about the prepay, there's companies you can't shop around. And I actually use one because I find I can plan it better, and I have, can I say a name of a company? A Power Shop. It's, you pay before you use it, and they give you an online system where you can actually see what you're using, what devices use, and so on. So I find it quite handy, and you can manage it better.
Cool, thank you very much, Wallace.
All right, obviously I've got to get it sorted around the panel, though. What do you pay in your household for power, roughly a month?
I think it's about 180, but then again, I also pay a little bit for the power while I'm in an apartment down here. So add the two together, probably about 220.
220. What about you, Megan?
In the middle of winter, I have a pellet burner, a very sustainable form of heating in my house at home. So, but between the pellet burner and electricity, probably 250, 300 in winter. Christchurch gets pretty cold.
And so advice.
Move to Hamilton.
So advice for those who are, struggling with their power. What can you do?
Well, insulation. Make sure that you can get the best insulation, whether that be taking advantage of trying to get underfloor insulation, good curtains, that you need a way to keep heat in once you put it in. But it's difficult. There are a lot of people that just... I meet too many people who just realise now that in winter they're going to be cold. Too many elderly people that think I'm going to stay in bed all day because it's too cold to get up.